What are like the basic things that some people just don't think about that it's different with growing sweet peas?
So the number one thing that I see people that are new to sweet peas growing is they start them way too hot and they don't give them enough
Mm.
light. So if it's too warm and they don't have enough light, they'll instantly bolt. And, within 24 hours, you'll see them and they're just really long and lanky. And it's really hard to come back from a start like that.
Welcome to the Beet Podcast. I am your host today, Jacques, aka the Garden Hermit, and today we have a special guest on, Marryn Mathis from the Farmhouse Flower Farm. And you have a very interesting story of actually you weren't originally into gardening and flower farming. This is kind of like a pivot you made later on. So I'd love to hear about your story, and we're definitely going to be talking about all sorts of flowers because you are a sweet pea master and you have all these really cool insights and information. So I'm really excited to talk everything about flower farming, but I'd also really love to hear about your background.
Yeah. So flower farming actually kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest with you. I did like a huge pivot. I don't think, honestly, I feel like I have my BFF life, my before flower farming life. And then,
Yeah, nice.
once I started farming, people that knew me, before I started flower farming, they're like, who are you? But I actually worked in technology for 21
wow.
years, believe it or not, for a local healthcare facility here in Washington State. And I loved who I worked with. I started there right out of high school. And so these people had become, my work family, basically. But I didn't love what I did. And so when my youngest son was born, we just kind of, I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I wasn't happy with what I was doing. I was just wanting a complete change. I had two young babies at home. My boys are only 13 months apart. And so we were totally entrenched in babyhood.
Right.
And through a series of events, I discovered flower farming and I just became enamored with, those beautiful, fields and photos that, all of us have fallen in love with over the years. And I had never gardened before other than a small vegetable garden in my backyard in a neighborhood. And other than that, I had never grown cut flowers before.
Wow.
I had never. So like I said, this is a complete pivot for me. And honestly, I'm so glad it happened.
Oh, yeah.
It's completely taken me by surprise. But I couldn't love it more. And here we are, almost 7 years later.
So it's like a visual hook, like you saw these flowers and something spoke to you and you were like, I got to get in there.
I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, it was just this feeling that kind of took over me. Like, wow. I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I couldn't explain it to you at the time, but it just felt right. Yeah, exactly.
No, I totally get that. I think that's probably true for a lot of people who even just discover like growing plants, like even like gardening. Sometimes it's like something magical overcomes and you're like, where was this? I love this.
Oh yeah.
But like, that's a pretty big step though, to go from, okay, like I'm doing this job, now I'm going to start a flower farm. So how did you actually like transition into that? Cause like there's different skill sets that, I mean, you're gardening, so you have some sort of like plant connection and understanding, but to go like straight up into flowers, which could be like a little bit finicky with like disease and like seed starting and all that. So I'd love to hear a little bit about like how you even literally started that process, because that's pretty wild.
Yeah. So I go 150 miles an hour all the time. And when I get my heart set on something, there's like no stopping me. And so we just decided we're going to do it. And so my husband it's kind of like a combination of dreams, so to speak. So he's always wanted to build his own house or,
that's cool.
Yeah. Or redo his own house. And then, we just kind of folded that in with the flowers, but it's been a lot of trial and error. I will I'm not going to lie. A lot of learning along the way. And we literally just jumped in with both feet. We sold our house in town. We bought property. We moved into a 28-foot travel trailer. And it's been a slow roll, but honestly, the response to the farm has been something that I never would have imagined starting out. And, when you start out flower farming, you're just praying that, people are going to want your product and they're going to want your
Right.
flowers and that you're just going to be able to make things grow, right? When you put those first seeds in
Yeah,
the
it's a big
soil, you're
one.
like, am I going to kill them? Are they going to bloom? And they did. And it's just kind of taken off in a way that now we're, selling seeds and sending tubers all over the United States. And I just finished a book and it just all the things. So it just, some things come into your life for a reason or a season, and there's a reason for this. Yeah.
And it's all about like taking that and just going for it. Like, sounds like you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
both found each other and we're like, we're doing this. And like the fact that you even moved in on the trailer, and I was looking at your place, go check out her Instagram, the Farmhouse Flower Farm. Like, it's beautiful. The website, like just the stunning layout. It looks really magical. So you guys definitely killed it, especially coming in fresh like that. But yeah, so you started it off, you planted those seeds, and is there like some sort of, like, what do you specialize in? What's your main flower?
Oh, my main flower is sweet peas and dahlias, but sweet peas completely have my heart. But those are our two main flowers. And then we grow all sorts of other, cut flowers, as well. But yeah, those are my two faves.
So the sweet peas are definitely up there. And then I saw like dahlias, ranunculus. And then are you big into like, do you do some of those annuals as well?
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm
Yes.
sure you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's like zinnias, I'm guessing, is like a pretty classic.
Yeah. So we grow a lot of stuff for seed here on the farm.
Okay.
So we kind of have our fun section that we do bouquets and make arrangements with and all that kind of stuff. And then we have our crop section of the farm where we just let that stuff go to seed, and then we collect the seed,
Okay.
clean it, package it up. That's actually, what we're kind of expanding in that department a little bit, just because so many people want to grow their own things, and
Yeah.
they don't just want to see the beautiful pictures; they actually want to do it themselves. And so that's been really fun to be able to help them grow the same things that we do.
That's really cool. Yeah, I imagine when you're setting up to farm flowers, how different is it when you're setting up for like cut flower production versus like actually trying to produce seed? Or like, are you treating those plants differently? Like, are you? Because I mean, the outcome is you want a lot of flowers, right?
Right.
Either way, I guess. But you also are leaving the other ones for seed. So I'm guessing you do something a little bit different.
Right.
Or is it? I don't know. With flower production, how does that?
So what's funny is that, people think that flower farming, when you're growing for cut flowers, you don't really want any flowers in your field, right? You want to be able to harvest everything that you're producing so that you're actually making money. Whereas
Right.
for seed production, you're actually letting everything bloom and blow in the field. So, those beautiful photos that you see, a lot of those people are growing for seed, which, can be very confusing between growing for cut flowers versus growing for seed. So, anybody that comes to the farm, I really have to explain to them, that's why this section of the farm looks the way that it does. And that's why this section of the farm looks the way that it does, is because we're growing specifically for seed. For sweet peas, for example, people are like, how do you harvest all of those? And I'm like, I don't. We very rarely cut our sweet pea seeds because, every bloom that's on every stem is a seed pod. And so, like I said, I have my fun row so that I can cut and contribute to our community and do bouquets and those kinds of things. But for the most part, I mean, we don't really cut anything. And we grew 32,000 sweet peas this last year.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Yeah,
Dang.
it was pretty magical.
The smell must have been insane. I can't even comprehend. Like when I plant like a nice row of sweet peas, I usually always do some in spring and in the fall, like one like 4-foot section at the very least, because I really enjoy the smell. But man, even just that one row, it's like, it's so sweet and intoxicating. I can't imagine being surrounded by 32,000 blooming sweet peas. That must be absolutely crazy. And I'm guessing the bees love your farm too.
Oh yeah.
Probably have all sorts of pollinators all hanging out there. Wow.
It's the
That's
happy
really
place
cool.
for pollinators.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I didn't really think about it, but when visiting a cut flower farm, you might not see any flowers. I never really thought about that as the case. It's really funny to think about. Huh.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
like, people that are having photographs taken and stuff, they want all the flowers blooming, but for, a regular cut flower farmer, they don't want all the flowers blooming. They're going to harvest them, either in bud stage or, right after that. So yeah, it's a very different way of thinking and transitioning. I mean, we plant the same way most of the time. Sometimes we have to give them a little bit more space than if you're growing for cut flowers, because we want
Oh,
more
sure.
air. Yeah, we want more air for seed production and those kinds of things. Whereas for cut flowers, you just want to get those puppies in there and get as many flowers as you can. But for seed production, you need to think about, airflow and, just kind of giving them a little bit more space. So yeah, so that you get a
Yeah.
good result. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I'm actually curious. If you were to compare like the workloads, how does it compare? Because seed saving, of course, has its own sort of work, but you could kind of concentrate it, and it's less time critical in a sense, I guess, than harvesting. Like in the morning, I have to get these cut before like they actually open. How do you like rate those two? Do you find the seed saving or the seed growing side more fun, or maybe a little relaxing? I don't know.
It's more fun for me in the respect of, being able to share it with so many more
Oh
people
yeah,
than
that's
a
true.
fresh bouquet, right? So, we get to touch, I mean, we did a little map with our last seed sale, and we scratched off every state as the orders came
Oh,
through, and
nice.
it took up the whole United States. And so to see that is just really it's inspiring for me, and it, just kind of fuels my soul to, keep doing this. But as a cut flower farmer, you're super busy in the spring and the summertime. And then, not so much in the fall, it kind of, tapers off. Whereas when you're
Right.
growing for seed, we're not necessarily as busy in the summertime because we're letting everything bloom and, blow open and, produce seed. But in the fall and the winter time, it is hustle central around here,
Yeah, I bet.
trying to get everything, harvested. You've got weather to take into consideration, letting everything
Yes.
dry. Yeah, cleaning it, packaging it, all the things. So, it's kind of a catch 22. It's either you're harvesting, the cut flowers for your customer in the early mornings, late evenings, putting them in your cooler, those kinds of things versus, they're kind of winding down for the season where we're just amping
Right.
up in the winter.
Yeah. It's also this is kind of getting on like a little farming tangent, but it's just always impressive to think about like if you're doing something like the seed sales, your sales are so concentrated in a time period that it's like as a farmer, you're really like it must be a little bit stressful at
Oh,
that
it's so
tail end of the
stressful.
season. Like, what if it rains and like I have to dig my dahlias out or like my sweet peas get soaked?
Yeah.
So yeah, hats off because that's some serious grind and like some planning, and it's another level from gardening for sure.
It's
Where
it,
if I don't
it's
get my
it's
sweet peas, it's fine. Uh, for you, it's like a big deal, right?
it's a really big
Uh,
deal. Luckily, seeds start setting for sweet peas a lot sooner than, some of
right.
the other annual flowers that we grow. But so that's usually we're done with sweet pea, seed harvest September,
Oh,
early
okay.
October. But all the other stuff is just, yeah, it's it's a
Yeah.
different way of thinking. It's a different calendar, right? It's
Yeah.
people keep saying, when you're not so busy, when you're not so busy, and we're always we're always busy, whether it's going from planning to seed starting to planting to
Oh
plant
man.
care, all of those things from it's 12 months out of the year
Yeah. There's
for
also the whole
sure.
business side, of course,
Oh
which
yeah.
is not the fun side, but to think
No.
about. But that definitely takes time. Uh, but actually, so you have your new book out, the Sweet Pea School, and you're so well versed in sweet peas. I'd love to know a little bit about history of sweet peas and like like why are you so connected to the sweet peas? And I have to say I was looking at some of the varieties on your site too, and not to overload this, but my favorite one that I saw, I was like the King's Ransom. I was like, what an incredible looking flower. So I'm also a newbie in the sweet pea world. I didn't know they could go that hard, for lack of a better term.
So King's Ransom has kind of taken over the sweet pea world. Honestly, if you thought the dahlia craze was unreal, King's Ransom at a seed sale, try try getting that. Yeah, it's honestly it's breathtakingly beautiful. And I have never seen a sweet pea morph and just be, it leaves me speechless. And I've been growing it for, several years now. And everybody wants it. It's just this incredible color. And
Yeah.
so we're doing what we can to get more seed of it out into the world. But it's, taking a little bit of time. But yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Sweet peas they've always had my heart. And looking back as a little girl, my grandma actually talked to me a lot about sweet peas growing up. And whether that planted a seed within me as a child, and I didn't really honestly think about it until I started, looking into growing cut flowers, and sweet peas were right there in the forefront of my memory, and it was the first flower I ever grew, and then it clicked. My grandma had told me these stories, all these years ago, about how beautiful they were and how fragile they were and how lovely they smelled. But until I actually saw them in person, I really, truly understood what she was talking about. And sweet peas have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. They were actually discovered in the late 1600s. A lot of people,
okay.
yeah. So they've been around for a really long time. They were more of a perennial sweet pea back in those days. So they were actually discovered on the hillside in Sicily, in Italy. And a lot of people correlate them, with England and being very British, flowers, but they were actually discovered in Italy. And,
interesting.
they were, it's really interesting. So they've been hybridized over the years, and, that's where your Spencer varieties and all of those lovely long stems have come from, breeding efforts that have gone on for, hundreds of years. And so when I fell in love with sweet peas, just kind of by happenstance, I started teaching classes about growing sweet peas. And just, my thought was just, I wanted to get more sweet peas out into the world and to create more beauty. And a couple of my students actually approached me after one of my classes, and they were like, have you thought of turning this into a book? And I had never thought, I had never, ever thought about writing a book. To be honest, English was not my strong suit in school.
Right.
Book reports, I was like, oh man, do I have to write a book report? But it just kind of like stirred something, within me. And
I'm sure the passion makes it a little bit easier, at least.
Yeah. And so it was just like, you can do hard things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, this is scary, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to put myself out there. And what's the worst that they can do is say no. And they didn't say no, they said yes.
That's
And
awesome.
so it's just, my book is a love letter to my favorite flower. And I wanted it to be inspiring to people. I didn't want it to be too scientific to where people felt overwhelmed, but I wanted it to be inspiring but relatable, and just cover not only the history of sweet peas, but also, the different varieties, how to grow them, all my tips and tricks, arranging with sweet peas, my favorite varieties, just the whole thing. So, I hope people, are really loving it and are excited about the book.
Yeah. I have to say, yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. I'm going to get myself a copy, because after looking at all the pictures and your site, and I think I now have a new appreciation for sweet peas, because you've really you've made them look a lot more magical than I ever have experience with them, and the color palettes that you have and the different varieties, and just seeing them all lined up, it just looks stunning. So I'm definitely planning on increasing my sweet peas. I love how it's honestly, I think, a little bit underrated, because I didn't realize how tall and sort of present the sweet peas could be in my garden. In the past, I've always thought of them as small, but to have a climbing tall flower like that is really unique and a fun thing to have in the garden, especially one that doesn't just like bloom once. It continues to bloom, smells great. I'm definitely going to increase my sweet pea production.
More sweet peas in the world. Mission accomplished.
Yeah. It's I don't know why I just never thought of them before. But I think you're right. They do deserve some more time in the limelight here for everyone to appreciate as well.
Well, and I think so many people have, they just say sweet peas, right? But once you start talking about them, so many people have these wonderful memories of these flowers, their grandmother's garden. It just, the emotional connection that so many people have with them. I've watched so many people just like bury their nose in these flowers and just instantly start crying. And so I'm like, why are people, you know, treating them as kind of an ordinary, standard flower? And, they deserve so much more love and attention than that. So, we're seeing all of these flower books, that are out in the world now. It's like, why are people not talking more about sweet peas? And so that was also one of the, big things behind me, kind of like one of the forces to writing this book is, I just wanted to create a beautiful book about a beautiful flower, inspire people to grow more and have them be successful, because so many people, I think, give up on them because they haven't been successful the first time around. And there's so many things, just a fine tuning a few little things can make a huge difference in growing these flowers. So, plus they grow vertically and not horizontally. So you can grow
that's a really great thing.
Yeah, so many of them in such a small space. So if you really think outside the box, you don't have to grow them in long rows like we do. You can I've seen people grow them in hanging baskets, around trees, around their mailboxes, up an existing fence. There's so many different ways that you can, grow sweet peas, and you don't have to have a lot of space for them. So.
Yeah, it's totally true. There really aren't that many flowers that are so compact in a sense when they could go vertical. I was trying to think of some while you were mentioning that. And like the closest analogy I could think of would be like maybe some straw flowers or sunflowers, but sunflowers are also very aggressive rooters, and I wouldn't want to plant them up against a bunch of other things, unlike the sweet pea. So maybe like, we've seen the dahlia resurgence and the zinnia resurgence with like the things like the, I just can't believe I blanked on it, but the zinnias that like morph and change their color, like the Queen Lime series. So like then you have things like this King's Ransom that can also do that. And that's when you got me hooked. So I think that's like, I think we're going to see more and more of this as people start to appreciate and come to them more. I'd actually love to hear some of the things that you're mentioning. Obviously, if you want to like really master growing sweet peas, guys, you got to get the book.
Yeah. So the number one thing that I see people that are, new to sweet peas growing is they start them, way too hot, and they don't give them enough light. And so, my students, I'm like, every time I'll ask this, I'm like, how many of you had really lanky sweet peas? And every time everybody raises their hand, and it's all because they start them way too warm and they don't give them enough light. Now, sweet peas, they like it cool. So germination happens between 50 to 55 degrees. So they're not like a tomato or amaranth or celosia or other annual flowers or vegetables that you might be growing in your garden. Where as human beings, we want to nurture our seeds, right? We want to take these tiny little babies and put them in our garden. So if it's too warm and they don't have enough light, they'll instantly bolt. And, within 24 hours, you'll see them and they're just really long and lanky, and it's really hard to come back from a start like that. So a lot of people, that's the number one thing is start them cool.
So they really are a great spring, like early spring, then direct sow kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's
depending on your climate. Here in the Pacific Northwest,
I'm thinking San Diego.
For you, definitely you'll want to direct sow, but for us, just because we get so wet, I don't like to direct sow because then you can't control the moisture, and 9 times out of 10 your seeds are gonna rot on you. So I start all of mine in seed trays, just so that Plus, I'm very controlling, especially when it comes to my sweet peas. I want to make sure that I'm the one that's giving them the right amount of water versus Mother Nature might have other ideas. Yeah. So
no, I personally, that's another great thing to know, because peas, I think a lot of people might think peas and sweet peas are very similar. And I think historically, I don't know if they even are, actually, I should say. I'm not actually that well versed on the difference. But I know a lot of people recommend not transplanting peas. I do it all the time. They seem to be fine. But it's good to know that with sweet peas too, you're totally fine to just transplant. And I totally also like transplanting because it gives you the control of, how densely was this planted? Did all the seeds come up? Like, this one that grew kind of weird, I don't really want to put that one in the ground, so I'm going to pick it out. So I get that as well. That's definitely a wise approach.
Yeah, I want to make sure that every available space in every row that we have is a healthy seedling.
Yes.
Versus, something that gets, wiped out, or, a pest comes through and, a mouse has eaten, 10 plants, and then you've got a huge hole. So, I like to control that as much as I possibly can. But, like garden peas, their growth habit is, relatively the same. But it's very, very important to note that sweet peas are actually poisonous. So you don't want to, grow them in your vegetable garden, especially like with young kids. We've always, taught our kids from, very, very, very young age that you don't eat sweet peas. And that's why, we waited until they were a lot older to actually plant garden peas, because we didn't want them to get confused between the two.
Smart.
But that's a really important thing to, know the difference between garden peas and sweet peas is you just don't want to eat any part of sweet peas.
I will say, fortunately, they do look very different when the pods form. That's one thing I've always appreciated, is that they look like more leathery on the sweet peas, not as like succulent, and almost like a little hairy. So at least it's easy to tell them apart. So that's a nice saving grace if you want to grow both in your garden.
Yeah, they're a little on the fuzzy side.
Yeah. But the plant itself, like, they look very similar. It's very interesting to see. But that is interesting. You mentioned, for example, that some varieties are like bred to have the longer stems. And I never think about the arrangements and bouquets and that side of things, because I do grow a lot of flowers, but I usually just leave them outside, or sometimes cut a few, bring them inside. So that's been an interesting thing with breeding, is like, when you're thinking of, as a flower farmer, you want that probably like long vase life and aroma and the stems, so you could do different arrangements. Are those kinds of the things that you're looking at when you're trying to choose those good bouquet varieties?
Yeah. So there's so many things that I look for, especially when I'm growing for seed on the farm, just because, 9 times out of 10, we're, selling these seeds to other growers that are going to be growing them for cut flowers. So I'm constantly, trying to bring new varieties in. I'm constantly, just researching and monitoring and, really looking at, the crops that we're growing for, monitoring them for stem length and fragrance and, vigor and how much, seed they produce. All of those different things, really we take into account when, choosing a crop or, choosing a variety to grow on the farm. But, the Spencer varieties are about 90% of what's on the market that you can get for sweet peas. And they're known for their long stems. Now, there's some that'll have, okay. There's some that will definitely, my longest sweet pea stem I've had is 28 inches long.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed they got that long. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. So given the right conditions, it's nuts. But like I said, there's some varieties that are, a lot longer, like, Spring Sunshine Peach. Bix has really great stem length. Wild Swan has really great stem length. So there's, some that are just bred that way, versus there's also some other tricks that you can do to increase your stem length. But, just really educating people on, what varieties will do best in their environment. Like if you grow in a very hot zone, you're going to want to fall sow your sweet peas, and you're going to want to grow varieties that only take 10 to 11 hours to induce the bloom cycle versus 12. So you want to get a jump on Mother Nature. So a lot of people think that they can. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that you can tweak your growing season, but also growing, certain varieties will make you a lot more successful in growing your sweet peas.
Wow. That's actually really fascinating because I know, for example, with tomatoes, like if you're going to grow a beefsteak tomato, it needs like 12 hours of sunlight to produce some of these tomatoes because they're bigger. But if you go like a cherry or a paste tomato, like you could get away with 10 hours or less. I had no idea that even within like something like a sweet pea, where in my mind they're all sweet peas, like I'm not distinguishing them that much because I don't know that much, obviously. But I didn't even know that there was like a daylight difference. So that's super cool and fascinating. And that's something like here in San Diego, for example, when it's our Persephone hours, like our our peak winter solstice, lowest sunlight hours is 10. So we're like right at the minimum sunlight window for anything. But I didn't even think like I could be looking for varieties that are better for flowering at 10 hours. So that's really cool. I just learned a nice little bonus piece of information there. That's really neat. I'm always trying to learn. That's why it's like, I love these kind of specific books because I could read through this book and I will understand that plant so much better, and it helps you really think about things differently. But speaking about like these arrangements, one of the things I was looking through your website that was fascinating, I really loved, genius idea, by the way, is the section was called Bouquet Bar, and I was like, what is that? Like, I don't even know what that means, because I'm really not that well versed in the flower trade. So I click on it, it's these beautiful pictures of bouquets, and within that, there's like little points, like the different flowers in that arrangement, and then all the different varieties are off to the right. I was like, how have I never seen that before? It's like so smart. You look at this amazing arrangement of flowers, and you're like, I wonder what that is. Oh, it's all right here. So, like, is that a big part of like the way that you do your cut flower business? Is like, can you explain even what a bouquet bar is actually? Because I'm a total novice here.
So there's a huge trend right now, for people to put together, I mean, whether it's baby showers, bridal showers, that kind of thing, they put together this bouquet bar, or even if it's a girl get together or any get together, whatever, they do a bouquet bar. And so I was thinking, how do we make our website just a little bit different, than everybody else? And just the bouquet bar came to mind. And I always get so many comments and so many requests. Whenever I post a picture, they're like, what is that? So I always try to post the ingredients, but I wanted to translate that to our website because all of those bouquets, we sell all of those ingredients, right? So not only are we inspiring, with different pictures of bouquets and arrangements, but also we're giving you the tools of what you need to actually create that yourself. So I was like, what if we take a photo and people can shop on the photo, but they can also purchase that whole entire bouquet in a bundle.
Yeah.
And, it just kind of steamrolled from there. And so we've had just so many compliments on that feature on our website. And so every year we try to incorporate more bouquets and more, just inspirational arrangements for people and just different ingredients and that kind of stuff. So it's been a lot of fun. So I appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, no, I saw that and I was like, wow, it's just so smart. It just makes a lot of sense. But it's something interesting. I didn't even know that like the bouquet bar idea, like it sounds fun. I've heard a lot of people now, for example, will do like their own arrangements at weddings and they'll just buy like the bulk flowers, and that's become very popular. But like you're in Washington, right? So if I wanted that bouquet, I can't get it here in San Diego, but I could get all those varieties and seeds, grow it myself, and do that with whoever. So yeah, I saw that and I was like, you know what you're doing. So when it comes to like the seed production as a small scale, like I imagine like you're probably selling out pretty quickly and easily, right? At your scale right now. Do you usually release all your seeds at a specific time of year?
So for sweet peas, we actually do 2 seeds sales a year. We do our fall sale so that those that need to fall sow can get the seeds in time.
I see.
And then we also do our big seed sale, which is, a larger round of sweet peas and all of our annual seeds. It's our full lineup. That is in January. That's in early January.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that's pretty hot. Like I remember one time I was trying to get into the dahlias and it was like, I got an email, it was like a dahlia drop. And I was like, oh, cool. Like some of these look interesting. And I go to the site, I'm like looking around. And I'm like, wait, it's sold out. I was like, look at the next one. It's like sold out. And I was like, what's going on? So I had no idea that these kinds of like these specialty seeds, I get it because it's like, where can you find some of these varieties, right? They're so unique and fascinating and beautiful. And it's also like, it's always fun to support a small farm, local farm, and just to like the different varieties that you have. So that's really cool for people to check out. January is the hot time, I guess. But I will definitely also be looking to pick up some sweet peas for sure. But looking at like I'm going to put like a little notify me for the King's Ransom. But because I need some of those.
If you need a tip for that, Jacques, get King's Ransom in your cart and check out. immediately, as fast as you possibly can.
Oh, okay.
The flower craze is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And King's Ransom sells out in like 30 seconds.
Oh
Like
my
it
gosh.
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't matter how much we have in stock. I could grow the whole entire farm of King's Ransom and it would still sell out in 30 seconds. Because it is such a hot ticket. And same thing with like, the dahlias, there's just those unicorn varieties that
Oh yeah.
everybody's going after, right? So my web support, my web designer, she does this fun thing when we have our sales. She captures, so behind the scenes on the analytics side of our website,
Oh yeah.
we can see a little blue dot with everyone that is logged on to the website. It honestly makes me cry every single time, just seeing the response to our farm, seeing the demand for our product, just seeing people supporting us and all the love. Anyway, so everybody shows up as a blue dot. And when they place an order, it shows like fireworks. It'll show, the blue line going from where they're at to where we are. And so she captured that and she always shares it, with me so that I can share it on my stories, because I'm like, if you wonder why you can't get something, it's because all of these people are going after the same thing. And
Snapping it up.
Exactly. It's stressful, but it's inspiring at the same time.
Yeah. I'd imagine for you, it's like you've mentioned, like it's so much more rewarding to have this like direct impact on such a wide breadth of people like this. I feel like that about like the education and content as well. It's just like so much fun that you could reach people across and like you could bring them that little bit of joy to grow those flowers and to reconnect. And it's just rewarding. It's such a rewarding place to be in. And I could tell that you love it full-heartedly. One of the other things I noticed on your farm is that do you do some animals? Like do you do just flowers? Do you have the vegetables still? Because I saw some really aesthetic, nice looking cows as well.
Well, they have their own little fan club, but yes, we have 4 Scottish Highlands and we
That's
absolutely
right.
love them.
Yeah.
They're pets. We don't raise them for meat. They're
Right.
just, I've come to terms with the fact that I like fluffy things. I like fluffy cows. I like fluffy chickens. I like fluffy flowers. I just like fluffy things.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are absolutely wonderful. So we have 4. We have 3 girls and a boy. And I never, like I said, in my BFF life, had you told me that I would raise livestock one day, I would have been like, you are joking. Like, no way. But yeah, they're absolutely fantastic. So everybody that comes to the farm, they're like, can we see the cows? Can we see the cows? I'm like, yes, you can see the cows. So that's really fun. But yeah, we actually upped our veggie growing game this year a little bit and
okay.
Expanded. We created a kitchen garden area. So it's, 20 raised beds. And we did we did onions and cucumbers and green beans, tomatoes, all sorts of squash. My 8-year-old wanted to grow watermelon and cantaloupe. So we did that, all sorts of herbs. Nice. So every year it's funny because my husband, he's very food oriented. And he's like, can we please grow something that I can eat? So for the first 3 years of flower farming, we didn't grow anything, edible really. But now we're really getting into the vegetables and that is catching on like wildfire as well, just because it's so rewarding just to be able to go out and pick your own stuff. And it's like, what are we having for dinner? And the kids just go out and they pick whatever and they bring it in and we just cook it. And it's been a lot of fun. So, stay tuned, but who knows if we'll be offering vegetables in our farm stand one day. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
But we'll see. And
then is your family involved? Like your husband and like kids, like how do you guys all farmers now?
Oh yeah. One of my sons, we call him Farmer Finn. He's already saying that he's going to take over when I'm a grandma.
There you go.
Honestly, he has a huge fan base. People absolutely just love him. And he is such a farmer. It's just really been surprising how much he's embraced, this life, and just, he loves it. And he makes a mean bouquet and sells out every time that he has his flowers. And he knows that, If he's going to plant it, he's going to harvest it, and he's going to make the arrangements. So he has his own little garden area and stuff. But I mean, people they clamor for his bouquets. Yeah, he just makes a little sign. I mean, he's 8 years old. He made a little sign, and he was like, "Flowers that make people happy." And he's selling out before mom is.
Yeah, come on, like that's unfair on the marketing level.
I know, right?
How are you gonna resist?
Yes. So he's been, we've kind of dabbled into hybridizing dahlias, and so now he's got his own dahlia, which is going to be released, this year.
So cool.
Yeah, so it's called Farmer Finn is his dahlia, and it's so awesome to see your kids. I want to instill in them the value of hard work and just, reaping what they sow, and, how you can make such a difference by, not only getting your hands dirty, but also, sharing so much with other people. And just to see them embracing, this and, running around barefoot. I mean, all summer long, I have to fight my kids. We have to before school starts, about a week before school starts, we have to be like, okay, you got to start wearing shoes again. But
no more feral child.
No more feral children.
Act like we're normal again.
Yeah, it's like we got to get a haircut. We got to start wearing shoes again. Sleeping inside. That kind of thing. But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
It's so cool to think the transition you made, and just how empowering it is also for him, to be able to do that. I can't imagine as an 8-year-old to have that experience. And that's going to stick with him, and that's going to be really fun in the future when he takes over and has his own flower farm. We'll see. But that's really, really cool. I love to hear that kind of stuff. And I love to hear about sweet peas now. I think, like I said, I'm going in, I'm going to get some varieties. I would love to actually ask for some recommendations on the ones that would work at 10 hours. Maybe we could do a little sidebar. But yeah, this has been really fun chatting with you. The new book, Sweet Pea School, if you guys want to actually get into it and learn about this amazing flower that I am now hooked on, check that out. Check out her website and her Instagram. Beautiful stuff, beautiful varieties, and it's been really fun talking with you. And again, that's the Farmhouse Flower Farm. But thank you for being on and for having this conversation. It was really fun, and I'm really happy that you took this journey because it's amazing. It's so cool.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and yeah, we're gonna have to hook you up with some early flowering peas.